Did you know that Harry's hearing at the Ministry of Magic is completely different in the book? That's right, although the outcome is the same and we do see a few familiar faces, Harry's time from waking up to being deemed innocent is completely different. It's filled with twists, turns, new characters, and removed dialogue that gives us so much more depth regarding his 5th year. So in today's video, join me as I go page by page and frame by frame through these scenes of the Order of the Phoenix and point out every addition, revision, and omission that the movie made to the book. We'll cover things like Harry's trip to the Auror office and Mr. Weasley's department, the morning conversation at Grimmauld Place that hints at the Order of the Phoenix secret plans, and a potential plot by Lucius Malfoy to put Cornelius Fudge under the Imperius Curse. My name is Gibby, and welcome back to episode 62 of Movies vs. Manuscripts, Harry Potter Edition. Welcome to Fact or Fantasy Harry Potter, a place where we talk about all things wizarding. I know it's been a while since I've done a Movies vs. Manuscripts, so if you're new here, this is a series in which I dissect the movies scene by scene and find all the changes they made to the original story. We're currently on the Order of the Phoenix, and I've already completed years 1 through 4 in this series. So after you're done watching this video, go check out the playlist on my channel to catch up on all the episodes you might have missed. Per usual, I'll cover all the changes across our 4 major categories of characters, timeline, location, and plot. But first, we need to refresh our memory on what happens in the movie's version of events. That way, it's fresh on our mind for the analysis. Picking up with where we left off in the last episode, we see Harry and Mr. Weasley heading down an escalator to the train system below London. The movie cuts around and we see them walking to a phone booth outside, and after Harry and Mr. Weasley both cram inside, it descends into the Ministry of Magic. Harry is in awe of this massive wizarding establishment as it's unlike anything he's seen before, and he follows Mr. Weasley into the lift. Shortly after entering, Kingsley runs in and whispers in Mr. Weasley's ear that the time of Harry's hearing has been changed, so Mr. Weasley and Harry head directly to the hearing, spotting Lucius Malfoy talking to Fudge along the way, and Harry enters the courtroom chambers. After entering, the proceedings begin and are quickly interrupted by Dumbledore, who comes in to Harry's defense. Fudge brings up the charges and Harry tries to defend himself, but without any witnesses, it's a lost cause. Thankfully, Dumbledore says that they do have a witness, and in comes Arabella Figg, who testifies to the presence of Dementors in Little Whinging, where Harry and Dudley were attacked. Due to this testimony and no rebuttal from Fudge, they go to a vote and Harry is deemed innocent. Then Dumbledore quickly walks out before Harry can speak to him, and that is where our scene ends for this week. It's actually pretty short, but in the book it's nearly 3 chapters worth of information, which deepens our understanding of not only Harry, but the wizarding world as a whole. So let's dive into our first 3 categories, which are characters, timeline, and location. First up for characters, we're missing quite a few. Harry sees Mrs. Weasley, Sirius, Lupin, and Tonks at breakfast, and then at the Ministry we run into a couple of named employees who are Eric the security guard, Bode, and Perkins, who is Mr. Weasley's partner in the misuse of Muggle artifacts office. Also, Rufus Scrimgeour is mentioned by Tonks, and as we know, he becomes the Minister for Magic in the next year. Finally, I'll mention that although Amelia Bones is technically shown in the movie, she is clearly named in the book and is a prominent figure who sits right next to Fudge. In fact, she's the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. But I'll talk more about her in the plot changes. I just wanted to mention it as a character difference here because her role is significantly diminished in the movie. As for timeline, we only have one small change, which is the fact that Harry is technically about 10 minutes late to his hearing. In the movie, we see Fudge speaking with Lucius before Harry heads into the hearing, giving the impression that it hasn't started yet. Obviously, Fudge is still outside talking to Lucius, so how could it? But in the book, Harry runs in and Fudge is sitting there and tells him he is late. So it's a change and I have to mention it, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal. Lastly, before we head into our plot changes, we have our location category, and there are 2 main omissions. First, Mr. Weasley's office. I'll talk about how we get there in the next section, but that is a place I would have loved to see. And second, technically the day starts at Grimmauld Place, but the movie cuts right to Harry and Mr. Weasley in the London Underground. Other than that though, the rest of the chapter takes place in the Ministry and there isn't much of a difference. Now, before I go diving into the plot changes, I need to mention that I can't go through every single difference in the dialogue, because that would take forever, given how much back and forth there is in these chapters. So that's why I always encourage you to check out the audiobooks on Audible and follow along with me as I do this series. You can use my partner link in the description below to get your first audiobook for free, and it can be any book of your choosing on their platform. And it's a win-win because I get a bonus for every free trial, so it's a great way to support the channel without spending a dime, and you get a book at the same time. And speaking of support for the channel, I need to give a huge shout out to Jason, Joshua, Timothy, Robo Steve, Andy, Drix, Maha, and the rest of my incredible Patreon and YouTube supporters who help make these videos possible every month. You guys are the best. Now, with that being said, let's dive into the plot changes. If you've been watching this series for any amount of time, then you can probably guess how our plot changes start. Unlike the movies, which cut from scene to save time, J.K. Rowling always writes out transitions to slowly ease in and out of chapters. So our first change is the removal of Harry's morning at number 12 Grimmauld Place. In the book, we read about Harry waking up and being nervous for the hearing that day, and then he gets the courage to get out of bed and go downstairs. A small but important detail later on is that we read about a blank portrait on the wall snickering at him. This isn't the first time it's happened, as it's been mentioned in the previous chapters, but I want you to tuck that away for future episodes when we learn about who is inside that portrait and the important role they'll play throughout the rest of the series. Anyway, Harry goes downstairs to the kitchen and is surprised to find Mrs. Weasley, Mr. Weasley, Sirius, Lupin, and Tonks all there waiting for him at this early hour of the morning. After greeting Harry, Mrs. Weasley bustles off to make him toast for breakfast, and Lupin continues his conversation with Tonks, who warns him that Scrimgeour has been asking Kingsley some funny questions, so they need to be more careful. Then Tonks says that she'll need to tell Dumbledore that she can't do night duty tomorrow because she's just too tired, and Mr. Weasley speaks up and volunteers to cover her shift. While this is all a passing conversation that Harry mostly ignores due to him being so absorbed in his own nerves, it's still important to mark these details down, especially since the movie doesn't give us the slightest hint about anything. But the book makes it clear that the Order is guarding something, probably at the Ministry, and members of the Order are pulling night duty. After this, they turn to Harry and can tell he's nervous, so they try to comfort him, with Tonks and Mr. Weasley saying that Amelia Bones is the one who will be questioning him in her office, and Tonks says Amelia is pretty fair and she'll hear him out. Then, after saying their last words of encouragement, they say goodbye to Harry and Mr. Weasley as they head out to go to the Ministry. Which brings us to our next change, which is that their trip to the Ministry obviously looks a little different. Cause why would the movie just show exactly what the book describes? That would be crazy, and it would put me out of a job, so cheers to changes. Anyway, they walk along the street outside, and as they pass muggles and different contraptions, Mr. Weasley can't help but mutter his astonishments under his breath. As always, Mr. Weasley is impressed with the muggle world, and especially when he gets to the automatic ticket machine, despite Harry telling him that it's out of order. Nonetheless, Mr. Weasley is thoroughly impressed, even if it doesn't work. Instead, they bought their train tickets from a guard, and Harry handled the transaction since Mr. Weasley isn't good with muggle money. A few minutes later, they were on the train heading to downtown London. Eventually, they arrive at their stop, briefly get lost, and then find their way down a side road to a broken down telephone box, which is a key detail, as the Wizarding World always wants their secret locations to be in places where muggles wouldn't think to enter. Therefore, this telephone box is in a bad-looking part of town, and it's looking quite beat up on the outside, not as pristine as the one in the movie, and definitely not in as public of a location. But the aesthetic of the box isn't the biggest change. It's actually the fact that they first have to speak to someone to gain entry. After dialing a secret number on the telephone, a woman's voice rings out and asks what their business is, and Mr. Weasley announces that he is escorting Harry Potter to his disciplinary hearing. At this, the telephone box spits out a visitor's badge for Harry to wear, gives them some instructions for where to go upon entering, and then lowers them into the Ministry. Now that we're into the Ministry itself, we have a few changes. First of all, I need to mention the statues at the Ministry. For the most part, I think the movies did a great job with the design of this magical establishment. What they got wrong, however, which is crazy since it's pretty much the only detail the book is super clear about, is the statue. Or should I say, the fountain. In the book, we read that there is a giant fountain with a statue of a majestic-looking wizard in the middle with a beautiful witch by his side. And surrounding the wizard and witch are an elf, goblin, and centaur who are all looking up at them in admiration and worship. The message is clear. Wizards consider themselves greater than all other magical creatures and expect the other creatures to submit to their rule. In the movie, though, they split this up. So you've got one big statue of a wizard in the big atrium, but a smaller statue of other creatures completely separate in the entrance. Anyway, I just thought that was an important detail since the statue is clearly communicating a message about the Ministry and the wizarding world. As Mr. Weasley and Harry walk past this fountain, Harry reads a sign that says, "All proceeds from the Fountain of Magical Brethren will be given to St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries." And Harry promises himself that if he doesn't get expelled from Hogwarts, he'll drop 10 galleons into the fountain. The next change we have is that Harry and Mr. Weasley just don't run off to the lift because Harry has to go through security first. So he and Mr. Weasley go up to the security checkpoint, and a board wizard takes his wand, prints out a receipt that states the wand's properties, which the security wizard keeps for his records, and then gives Harry back his wand. As he gives Harry his wand, the wizard sees his name badge and looks at his scar, recognizing who he's talking to. But before he can create a commotion, Mr. Weasley tells him goodbye and pulls Harry away. And yes, that security guard is the Eric that we mentioned earlier. If you've ever watched my videos on Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, you'll know that I enjoy when the author mentions random characters by name. These may be people that never show up in the story again, but there's something about naming someone random that really adds depth to the world. I think a great way to tell a shallow story or a shallow book is when they only name the main characters and everybody else is some random person. So as far as I know, I don't think we ever see Eric again, but I'm glad he gets a mention. Next up, after Mr. Weasley and Harry get into the lift in the movie, Kingsley runs in to inform Mr. Weasley of the changed hearing details. However, this doesn't happen in the book. In fact, Mr. Weasley and Harry go all the way to Mr. Weasley's office before they find out what's happened. We read that they waited on the lift for quite a while, as Mr. Weasley's office is one of the last levels. But finally they got there, and Harry and Mr. Weasley got off. In order to get to Mr. Weasley's office though, they pass the Auror department, and Kingsley Shacklebolt is in there. A fun detail that we learn is that Kingsley is in charge of the hunt for Sirius Black, something the movie completely drops after the third film, but the book continues in Harry's 5th year. The Ministry is still hunting for this supposed mass murderer. And we read earlier on in the book that Kingsley, being in charge, was feeding the Ministry wrong information about Sirius to keep them off the trail. This means that they have to keep up the act in person that they don't know each other and that they're not a part of the, quote, Order of the Phoenix. Harry forgets this and goes up to say hi to Kingsley, but gets a swift nudge from Mr. Weasley to not do that, and is surprised to hear Kingsley take a firm tone with Mr. Weasley, bossing him around to get a report done soon. But then, in an undertone, he hands them a Quibbler magazine and tells them to give it to Sirius, because he might enjoy it. Keep that in mind as well, by the way, because once we meet Luna this year, we'll see this same magazine get brought up with an insane article about Sirius that the movie never includes, and it's absolutely hilarious, so I think we'll cover that in a couple episodes. Anyway, after Mr. Weasley replies coolly to Kingsley, saying that the report will have to wait, he mumbles under his breath that Molly is making meatballs tonight if he can get off soon enough. Then they turn around and march off to the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. I guess I'll separate this into another change, and that is the omitted time of Harry sitting in Mr. Weasley's office. After all, they believe the hearing isn't for a while longer, so Harry was just going to wait with Mr. Weasley and then go later on. Plus, Amelia Bones' office isn't too far away, as I believe she's on the same level. So while they're in the office, Mr. Weasley gets a memo about a regurgitating toilet, and explains to Harry that some wizards will put spells on toilets so that when a muggle tries to flush it, it explodes with sewage. Of course, it's anti-muggle and illegal, but most wizards don't care, and Mr. Weasley and his partner Perkins are left to clean it up. Shortly after discussing this though, Perkins comes running into the office completely out of breath, and he tells Mr. Weasley and Harry that their hearing has been changed. And at this, Harry and Arthur Weasley go running off. They go as far down the lift as they can, and then they eventually have to take some stairs. Mr. Weasley tells Harry that he doesn't know why they're holding the hearing all the way down here because the lift doesn't even go down this far. But the real change about this journey to the new location is that they don't see Lucius Malfoy and Fudge talking by the door to the Department of Mysteries. They are in too much of a rush as it's already been 5 minutes past when the hearing began. So as soon as they reach the courtroom, Mr. Weasley wishes Harry good luck and Harry walks in. This takes us into Chapter 8, which is all about the hearing itself, and there are a few extremely important changes. First of all though, this isn't really a change, but I wanted to mention that Harry recognizes this as the same room where he watched Barty Crouch get sentenced to Azkaban and the Pensieve the year prior. So obviously he's in his head like, why the heck am I in this place? Because it usually is reserved for more serious cases. Anyway, the first real change here is that Fudge isn't alone at the head of the room. On his left is Amelia Bones, who is the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and the person who originally was supposed to speak to Harry in her office. Despite Fudge being the minister, Amelia Bones is technically kind of in charge here, as this is her department. Then on Fudge's right is another small witch, but Harry can't see her too well as she is sat back in the shadows. We'll soon find out though that this person is Dolores Umbridge, and I'm not sure why they made this change in the movie by putting Amelia Bones and Dolores Umbridge in random other places in the room. Like, why not just put them on Fudge's left and right as the book describes? It wouldn't be that hard. But moving on, our next change is that when Dumbledore enters, he calmly conjures up a chair for himself, and then when Mrs. Fig comes in, he makes a chair for her as well. Also, as he walks in, several witches and wizards wave to him happily. Obviously, despite the Ministry's slander and them removing him from the Wizengamot, many of the witches and wizards there still think Dumbledore is pretty cool. And I especially like that detail about him conjuring up a chair. It's just a fun little thing that shows how relaxed and easygoing he is about this whole process. As we know though, these movies made Dumbledore quite a bit more intense. Next, the movie kept a lot of the following dialogue the same. Amelia Bones is impressed that Harry can produce a Patronus, Harry says that he only did it because of the Dementors, Fudge says that they can't produce a witness, and then Dumbledore speaks up and says yes, they actually can produce a witness. The main change here are just a few words that the movie left out, and for the most part I understand why. You see, Dumbledore calmly but firmly fires back at Fudge, saying that under the Wizengamot Charter of Rights, the accused reserves the right to present witnesses. Why does Dumbledore bring this rule up? Well, because in the book, after Dumbledore says they have a witness, Fudge attempts to skip over it, saying that he wants a quick hearing and decision, almost refusing to hear out their witness, which would be extremely corrupt and illegal. Thankfully, Madame Bones is there and is a fair judge, and she confirms what Dumbledore says is true, and that they do need to hear out the witness. I think this is a super important little detail, because it just gives a peek at how corrupt Fudge is becoming, trying to avoid the proper rules and regulations and convict Harry without a fair trial. Something I will note as another change here though is that in the book, we get the feeling that Mrs. Fig hasn't actually seen a Dementor, and that she's kind of reciting from a script or an image that she was shown. For example, she says in the book that she saw the Dementors running, until Amelia Bones asks if she meant gliding, and Mrs. Fig quickly corrects herself. Harry gets the impression that she definitely hasn't seen them before, which is the hinge point of the entire testimony. Because she's a squib, Fudge believes that she can't see them, and honestly, this is a really interesting point. You're telling me that in the thousands of years of wizarding history, the Ministry hasn't found out if squibs can see Dementors? It kinda seems like something that would have been brought up at this point. But oh well, that's not a question for the movie, that's a question for J.K. Rowling. Anyway, I won't go into the dialogue much more because it would take quite a while to parse through all of the back and forth between Dumbledore and Fudge, but just know that there's a lot more than the movie shows, with Fudge even saying that Harry is known for crazy stories and flagrant misuse of magic. He cites the incident with Dobby in Harry's second year, and Harry exclaims that it was a house elf, not him, who performed the floating charm. And this just confirms Fudge's claims that Harry is inventing crazy stories. But Dumbledore says that the house elf in question is actually employed at Hogwarts right now, and he can call Dobby to the hearing immediately for questioning if they wish. This seems to stump Fudge for a bit, but then he mentions how Harry blew up his aunt in year 3. Which Dumbledore reminds him that Fudge personally forgave that incident and it can no longer be held against Harry. And ultimately what the conversation ends with is Dumbledore saying that the Ministry has no right to expel anyone from Hogwarts, as that decision falls under the headmaster's control alone. Fudge gets very upset at this, and it's this exact moment when Fudge seems to decide that Dolores Umbridge should go to the school, beginning the Ministry's takeover of Hogwarts. I do believe that this direct challenge of Dumbledore telling Fudge that he doesn't have power at the school is what makes Fudge want to take over. Ultimately, they keep arguing, but Dumbledore seems to have an answer for every single one of Fudge's concerns and complaints, and when it comes to a vote, they let Harry walk free. And that brings us to the final omission of the day, and that is the fact that as Harry and Mr. Weasley head out of the Ministry, they run into Fudge talking to Lucius Malfoy, and they don't only swap strange looks, they actually confront each other. Lucius says that Harry has a way of slipping out of tight situations, almost like a snake. He's obviously playing into the fact that Harry can speak Parseltongue, which Fudge and the Daily Prophet have been using to say that Harry is a dark wizard, or at least just twisted in the head. Lucius continues to put on the act in front of the minister and asks if they should find somewhere private to talk, and Fudge takes Lucius up to his office. This prompts Harry to ask Mr. Weasley if it's possible that Fudge has been put under the Imperious Curse. After all, if Lucius has him alone in an office, he could easily do it. But Mr. Weasley says that although it's possible, Dumbledore thinks Fudge is acting of his own accord, at least right now, which honestly is almost worse than if he was put under the Imperious Curse. Then, as Harry and Mr. Weasley make their way back out into the atrium and the entrance with the fountain, Harry remembers his promise and drops his entire pouch of galleons into the fountain. And that is where our changes end for this episode. So what book-to-movie difference stuck out to you the most? Was there anything that you approve of, or anything you really wish the movie wouldn't have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out the series playlist to catch up on any episodes you might have missed so far. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.